I'm speed dating 3 PlayStation 2 heavyweights, each gets 60 minutes to win me over. And first time playing all, so there is no nostalgia safety net here. In this episode, we swing across the early 2000s Manhattan, stomp through Neo Detroit and Cold Steel, and fight a monstrous Hydra on doomed ships. But which one still hits? Stick around and let's see which PlayStation 2 classic survives the clock. As a kid, the name RoboCop always brought to my mind to the classic 80s action movie, the cold metallic stare of a cyborg cop fighting for justice, and every step is about enforcing the law. For the record, I rather always had a soft spot for RoboCop 2.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
He's dead, Murphy.
You have the right to an attorney.
You're reading Miranda to a corpse.
When I found out that there was a RoboCop game on PlayStation 2, my nostalgia engine kicked in immediately. I expected the game to bring back those neon-lit smoky streets and hard-hitting action I knew from the movies. But I also felt a bit of fear. While there was a lot of these, if you remember, movie-based adaptations rarely delivered what we hoped for on the PlayStation 2. Right at the start, my first impressions weren't that great to say the least. I mean, just look at this main menu. Literally, it's got nothing going on. And it stopped off with a soundtrack that honestly could pass for a generic NES theme. What were they thinking? Anyways, maybe the game itself is good. As you boot up a new game, you step into the boots of none other than Alex Murphy, you know, better known as RoboCop.
Murphy.
Whose mission seems simple: stop crime on the streets of Neo Detroit, and that's it. The very first level throws you straight into gunfights as you work your way through alleys and run down buildings to track your targets. The story isn't really complex to say the least. It is linear and mostly serves as an excuse to shoot as many bad guys as possible. Before each mission we also get a list of wanted and missing persons who we should be looking out for during each stage. In case you wish to earn more points, I guess. Not really sure what was the incentive here, by the way. I mean, at least if you would have the possibility to upgrade RoboCop from these points or something, but there is no such thing going on in this game. The controls feel odd at first. RoboCop moves in a sluggish, heavy way. Well, understandable when you are walking around in a ton of metal, but unfortunately the sluggishness becomes frustrating in combat. Also, aiming isn't very precise either, and enemies often have the advantage thanks to their faster reaction times. During the first mission, initially, I repeatedly tried to pull back into cover during gunfights, but RoboCop's speed made it anything but easy. Fortunately, RoboCop is tanky enough that it takes a lot of bullets to bring him down. The graphics are average for the PlayStation 2 era. Environments feel a bit empty and the textures are washed out, like they had been carried over from a previous generation. RoboCop's model is more detailed in the cutscene, and from what we see during gameplay of him and his weapons, at least they look authentic. The game tries to evoke the film's dark, oppressive atmosphere, yet it often comes off grey and lifeless instead. And yeah, there is no gory elements carried over from the movies at all. Don't even expect it.
Oh, come on!
At its core, this is a linear first-person shooter with a few extra mechanics. There is a HUD for shield, power, ammo, and a crosshair. Gunplay is pretty straightforward with limited weapon variety and not much to explore on the levels. RoboCop's iconic pistol is making an appearance, and it has an infinite ammo and works quite effectively thanks to its burst fire mechanic. Near the end of the first stage I picked up a grenade launcher too, and at the start of the second I started off with an integrated automatic rifle which was built into his left arm. So the arsenal can expand as you progress and might add some variety. One genuinely interesting idea, at least initially, is RoboCop's built-in systems for identifying targets and displaying information, though that quickly becomes repetitive as well, honestly. Also the fact that RoboCop's main purpose, you know, is to uphold the law, and thus save civilians and arrest any criminals that surrenders. The latter happens randomly, so you cannot just mindlessly shoot criminals because some of them surrenders themselves during gunfight.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
For the first 5 to 10 minutes, I was genuinely excited. I finally get to play as RoboCop. But it quickly became clear that the mechanics aren't that very deep and enemy behavior is predictable. Still, there was a strange pull to methodically clear rooms that advanced slowly, step by heavy step. In the first mission, I fought through multiple shootouts, with a few civilian rescues sprinkled in and some side goals to achieve, like, arrest and criminals. Most of these outside the main objectives won't affect your progress, however, and I already mentioned going out of your way to achieve the side objective doesn't give extra perks like enhancing RoboCop or his weaponry. Rescuing civilians also could have carried some emotional weight, but the execution was so simple that it felt secondary. And have I mentioned, this is one of those games where if you die, you have to restart the entire stage all over again. This is mainly what set me back and why I was only able to play the first level mostly within the hour. And of course, the beautiful maze, the sewer level is where every corridor looks and feels the same. It is just a perfect spot to get lost. After finishing the first level and paying a visit to the main menu to listen to the iconic NES soundtrack, I dipped into the second level as well, but I did not have much time for it. But at first glance, it did not offer much new beyond a terrorist in an armored mech suit and a robot enemy. And, of course, rescuing more people. Oh, and I forgot about this genetic mutation in the sewer level. Is this a reference to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or to the movie Split Second? If you haven't seen Split Second and love 90s cheesy sci-fi movie, go do yourself a favor. This game brought back memories of my early first-person shooter days when I didn't mind if a game was a bit clunky or empty. But there is a kind of retro charm here that you feel with those simple action games from the early PS2 and late PS1 era. One of the more entertaining moments was when the enemy AI completely froze, just stood there while I calmly lined up a shot. Well, the AI got stuck in weird animations a few times and the sluggish controls often put me to a disadvantage. Beyond the visual shortcomings, the audio mixing isn't great either. Gunshots lack punch, the in-game background music is monotonous, and oh, did I mention the NES-like soundtrack in the main menu? Even though I finished the first mission, then sampled the second, I did not feel compelled to continue. Nostalgia couldn't outweigh the shortcomings of the gameplay, sadly. This game basically just hasn't stood the test of time. I would recommend it mainly to die-hard RoboCop fans who want to try their favorite hero in every possible form, but everyone else is better off picking up any other RoboCop game but this, if the movies put them in the mood. As a kid, that red and blue suit always meant one thing from afar. One of the good guys just swung into town. With the PS2 era Spider-Man, the tie-in to Sam Raimi's first film, I always imagined it would bring back that early 2000s punchy comic book vibe. Manhattan at sunset, heroic music, web swinging between rooftops and fast, flashy brawls. And now it's time to test it. 60 minutes on the clock, no more, no less.
I got you for 3 minutes! 3 minutes of playtime!
The gameplay makes it clear right away. We are past Uncle Ben's death, there is no slow burn origin story, instead you are thrown into the immediate current of revenge and justice. The goal in the first hour: identify and track down the killer while chasing school gang members from rooftop to rooftop, then into a warehouse district. The cutscenes are not to the Sam Raimi movies, obviously. Toby's face, Green Goblin flashes in the opening shots, but during the first hour the framework isn't really the movie's iconic moments. It's rather a hunt across rooftops and between warehouses. Right in the main menu you can choose between classic and enhanced control styles, and you can either move with the left analog or even the D-pad. I decide to start off with the combination of left analog and classic control style, then later try the enhanced version, which basically just means the camera system acts differently, but more on that later. Combat looks simple: square to punch, circle to kick, triangle for web, X to jump, R2 to swing. The problem isn't really the button layout, it's that the camera and the character often feel like they live in two different worlds. You want to go and the camera wants to look, just not in the same direction.
You serious?
Web swinging is fun at first, but you quickly tell how the game aged. Your web doesn't strictly attach to buildings, it also latches onto the sky. Logical? Not really. Practical? Well, yeah, totally, as long as you stay airborne. And it's also a bit of dumb fun, let's be honest. Playing on the ground, like in the modern games, not really a thing here, at least not freely. If you drift too close to street level, Spidey simply lets go, drops, and that's it. No New York City strolls, like in modern games. The game confines you to rooftops and indoors, vents to ceilings and catwalks. It has a clear frame, tight curated arenas level by level. The menus definitely have a flavor: red, black web texture, spinning Spider-Man logo. The background music is arcadey, energetic, with a B-movie action vibe. It works until you hear it for too long. The start of the stage, the sunset is very pretty. Distant set dressing, however, creates that odd houses standing in the water illusion. Rooftop textures look decent, the ground level dressings up close are rather rough. Indoors, warehouses, vents, caged halls bring that PS2 industrial set. Dark, somewhat monochrome, lots of crates and red blinking switches. Model and animation quality is mixed. Spidey's posing is iconic, but the brawl choreography is choppy and the camera amplifies that sadly. It starts off looking sleek, but during play it often feels fragmented and hard to read.
A what?
Within the first hour, a sampling of many things pop up. The game narrates hints that staying in shadows, ceilings keeps you unnoticed. In practice, often not. Most situations just devolve into a fight.
What?
You can use your web as a crowd control, you can wrap up a thug to disable him for a bit. It is a lifesaver in one versus many situations. There are also interactive props: fire extinguishers, barrel, tire. Throw it, blast it, block with it. It is a good ranged attack option if you don't blow yourself up. About the health system, there is no auto heal in this game. If you take hits, you need to find health. The stage hides it dungeon style very effectively, so you have to be on the lookout.
No, please, what is that? Don't tell me.
Saving your progress. At the end of each level there is a photo album save menu. It looks very cool. And you asking me about mid-level checkpoints? Not really, there are many, but more on this later because it's a pain in the ass.
I'm a reasonable guy, but I've just experienced some very unreasonable things.
The first 5 to 10 minutes are exactly what I expected. Hey, it's Spidey, we are swinging, we are punching, let's go. Then the initial sheen fades, the camera turns late, lock-on doesn't help often enough, manual shots whiff, and the ground lookout feels like an annoying artificial wall. Meanwhile, tutorial question marks pop up, the narrator occasionally dishes advices with a condescending tone.
Let's face it, there's nothing more embarrassing than getting whacked by some thug you lost track of.
And did I already mention the camera 10 times? Well, switching from classic to enhanced camera doesn't save me either. Even with the enhanced version, half of the time I'm fighting my own camera controls, if that makes sense. We also have a minimap on the screen with an arrow leading from rooftop to rooftop. Funnily enough, the gang members feel cloned, copy-paste, but the objective is clear. Squeeze info out of them and get closer to the killer. Fights are short, webbing is effective, the vibe is middling. While this is going on for a while, from there the warehouse threat starts. Here you are tiptoeing most of the time along the ceiling, stealth should be the plan. I tried, but it quickly turned into a full brawl all the time. Then I discovered that I'm able to throw some props like extinguisher, barrel, tire, some explosives. and the realization that the entire room can be on me in seconds if I mistime a blast. Then after manual aiming and fuse shenanigans show up here, switch, power down, find the fuse, put it back. It is bare bones, but at least it breaks the go there, punch them out routine. Oh yeah, we also have the spider sense in this game, and the first time it tingles, you should jump quickly. I failed and I got launched off screen and back to the start. You have to nail it at first, otherwise you have to restart the entire stage again and again.
That's a year off my life.
Once that's out of the way, you have to climb to the ceiling through jets of gas. In R3 aim mode, watching the green frame trying to aim for a perfect spot to swing to avoid the damage. The system works, but you need a camera that perfectly sits in your hand, and that you don't always have in this game. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, 4 to 6, then more enemies rush in with pistols and rifles, and one bad choice and your health collapses like a house of cards. About after the 4th retry, I realized that there is health and is stuck up high in the ceiling. I guess the game teaches the player verticality here, or at least tries to. Well, for me it wasn't that really obvious. But honestly, when it clicks, it is kinda satisfying, but when it does not, honestly you are just swallowed by chaos and rage.
I'm too old for this shit.
This was already gruesome for me, but the first boss fight is where the no mercy rule becomes clear. The boss blasts you from around the corner with his shotgun easily. Spidey sticks to the wall, the camera stares at you while the boss shoots you. There is no mid-save checkpoint at all, If you fail, you have to replay the entire stretch with a lot of goons and on top of the boss fight. You have to retry it many times, too many times. There was a brief, honest, pseudo-open-world freedom at the very beginning. Sunset, city skyline, roof-to-roof swings. Then reality caught up with nostalgia. This is an early 3D action game and you can feel it in every single frame. After modern Spider games, these controls is from another time. Being old isn't a sin, but here old comes bundled with discomfort. Even with the enhanced camera controls enabled, the camera often works against you, either turning its back on the action or shoving in too close. During fights, target lock-on exists in theory, but in practice, it locks hopping to the wrong target the moment you actually need it. Spidey sticks to the walls and ceilings like they are sugar-coated. If you want to bail, he rather wants to pose, and this goes on and on. Checkpoints inside the levels are basically non-existent. Fail a boss fight and you are replaying the whole stretch. My emotional arc during this game went like this: excitement, then curiosity, then adaptation, then irritation, and finally exhaustion. The initial thought of this will be great of the very first 10 minutes gave way to fine, I learn and live with it in the middle of around 30 to 40 minutes, which eventually the boss retries and restarts just destroyed ultimately. Story-wise, we did not move much in the first hour, still on the killer's trail, warehouses, vents, more unruly gang members, but no real aha moment. The game did not offer enough to make me say after an hour, I have to keep going. If I would crank the difficulty all the way down, I might have enjoyed the running and webbing more, but still the core issues would remain. The camera system, sticking to the wall without any control, the lack of checkpoints are structural issues rather, and just to speak for myself, they are not skill issues. I say it, they are not.
Fuck me, right?
In the very first hour, Spider-Man shows all the charm and all the weaknesses of early 3D licensed games. The rooftop swinging has a mood, the warehouse mini puzzles add a token variety, but the camera, wall sticking and the lack of checkpoints systematically undermine the fun. This game is not just hard, it's rather uncomfortable. Who might still like it? Well, big Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire fans who want to methodically play through the movie games for historical curiosity. And also retro masochists who enjoy breaking old mechanics and don't mind many restarts. For everybody else, there are Spider-Man games that are still fun today, and this one is more time travel than entertainment.
Where is he?
I can't tell you. He'd kill me.
What makes you think I won't?
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
As a kid, I completely missed God of War. I knew the name and the legend, blades on chains, gods, Greek mythology, a bold wrecking ball who smashes everything in its way, but I never actually played the first PS2 entry. Well, time to fix that. I booted it up, set the difficulty setting to normal, and gave it a clean 60 minutes to prove itself. First question after the opening, is it Greek or Norse mythology? By the way, I was completely confusing it with the latest God of War entries, but given all the Olympus chatter and where Kratos is at, yeah, it becomes clear fast, we are in Greece. The intro grabbed me immediately, Hollywood-style narration, a bleak mood, and a dramatic plunge from Olympus, then a rewind, and suddenly I'm on a splintered deck with chain blades and a full grip of rage.
Home sweet home.
This game knows how to make an entrance. We open with big cinematic narration straight into the myth, Kratos the Spartan legend and his, let's call it, complicated relationship with the gods.
After 10 years of suffering, 10 years of endless nightmares, it would finally come to an end. Death would be his escape from madness.
While the premise is clear, it can be more complex down the line in the story, I imagine. Kratos does divine dirty work while visions, guilt, and past sins haunt him. The immediate objective is, however, much more simpler. Survive the Hydra's chewing through the fleet, free whoever can be saved, and push forward. In the background sits the bigger job. Athens is burning, Ares must be stopped, and the gods dangle a promise of relief and clarity if Kratos succeeds. How much of that is a deal and how much is bait? That is a story for the future. The opening minutes teach you fast without feeling like a lecture, fixed camera but dynamic framing, and two chain-bound blades that let Kratos hand out pain from very comfy distance. The controls make sense immediately, light and heavy attacks, block, quick evasive rolls on the right stick, jump into combos, also collectibles hidden in crates, chests, and an R2 toggle chest that spills orbs. I have no idea what they do yet, but my inner gaming collector wakes up the second they start pouring in.
Hell yes!
There is a built-in rhythm to the combat, the swish of the chains, launching enemies by holding triangle, weaving mid-air strings. Circle lets me grab, slam, rip through opponents. Not very subtle, but that's the point. The first big game mechanic I learn is tap that circle button until your thumb begs for mercy. Quick time prompts pop up, and if you smash that button cleanly, you get a cinematic finisher as your reward. Similar press and hold idea appears when forcing things open. Do I love it? Honestly, somewhere in the middle, but it works, and it adds momentum.
Patience is not one of my virtues.
Saving happens at glowing golden save points, explicit, and I have to remind you, there is no autosave. We also got a color-coded chest system, and the rules are as follow. Green equals more health, while blue equals more magic points. And when Poseidon drops by through a portal and hands me my first god power, which is called Poseidon's Rage, what a cool name, the system clicks immediately. Divine abilities sit on their own selector. This one sits on the right button on the D-pad, and once selected, I'm able to activate it with L2 to unleash that magic power, and in the same time it will drain that blue bar, of course. For the PS2 era, the presentation is surprisingly cohesive and cinematic. The slick planks of the wreck, the churning sea, the Hydra's glossy slimy mows, fixed camera angles, love this stuff. The score is also orchestral and grandiose. It gives that iconic feeling from the very first minutes, and it sells that big movie vibe. Five to 10 minutes in, and I catch myself grinning. The hour unfolds gradually but confidently. On the deck, I'm learning the basics: launch, grab, toss the opponents, and feeling the weight in every swing. Then suddenly the level flips vertical. You are fighting while climbing, netting? Like this new set itself is your arena. It's as if a brawler game quietly married a platformer. From there, you just stop thinking in 2 dimensions. Pacing and framing will take your hand, and QTEs do not interrupt at all. They cap off encounters like punchy full stops. Meanwhile, the symphonic soundtrack in the background makes everything feel just bigger. Tutorials trickle in without stopping the show, how to open doors, when to block, when to dodge, so it all reads as organic. The first hour's peak is unmistakably the Hydra fight. It is a multi-phase rhythm, a fight that escalates into eye gouging, neck yanking, and a head pinned like a kebab. It is more than a spectacle.
Yes! Now, this is what I'm talking about.
This is where the game really teaches you to chain together evade rolls, air juggles, and QTEs into one big flow. Alongside that, you get little moments that set the tone. The captain's cape pulled literally out of the Hydra's gut, gross but clever, a split-second plea for help on deck which is cut off by a scream, and a prisoner who simply refuses to be rescued. All three of these beats are rather darker notes and whisper this isn't really a superhero fairy tale. Emotionally, the gameplay experience curve is simple and effective. The entry, the narration, and the chainblade music win you over in minutes. Then the net climbing and the Hydra's early phases convince you this is directed action and not button mashing. Well, at least not always. And by minutes 30 to 60 after the key episode and the rescue, the stakes are clear. Athens in flames, and Ares must fall, and your hand is already hovering over the continue button.
I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
God of War's first hour is a textbook on how to open a game. It doesn't show everything, but what it does show is delivered with spotless rhythm and confident direction. This game brings back the best of the PS2 era's momentum, where gameplay comes first and story bracing it at the right moments. Timing is everything here. The camera doesn't ask, it rather composes. The QTEs do not replace the fight, they underline it. These camera angles can be a complaint usually, but here I noticed I don't mind them. They give a real cinematic feel while not compromising the gameplay. Even the button mashing bits work like a metronome. By the end, you genuinely feel like you are the one who drove that head into the mast. Any technical bumps or frustrations? Well, is there any glitchy camera maybe, you would ask? Not really. You'll occasionally get the which way now moments thanks to the fixed camera angles, but the level layout is clear and simple enough to not get lost. The QTE timing can feel tight, however, especially on modern controller or under emulation, where input feel can differ from a real console, so I wouldn't pin that solely on the game. But miss a QTE string and, well, yeah, you can start all over that mini-boss fight. But the rhythm gets into your hands fast, so once it does, it all clicks. This game is perfect for anyone who wants tightly directed, high-intensity action, and is curious how fixed camera angles can still feel modern when the composition is this strong. And of course for anyone who somehow skipped one of the PS2 era's great pilot episodes besides me.
For no matter how much wine he consumed or how many women he took to his bed, nothing on earth could rid him of the horrors that plagued his mind.
Well, a couple of 60 minutes later, these are my final verdicts. If any of them shocked you, make sure to let me know and drop a PS2 title you want me to enjoy or suffer next. If you're into these honest retro trials without the nostalgia tainted glasses, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. I was Gabe and I see you in the next one. Until then, keep gaming.